Just in, Mammoth fraud scandal rocks Washington. Trump was right all along. President Donald Trump said from the start that voter fraud was a rampant problem in the U.S. He said he'd investigate the problem, and the instant he said it, Democrats went berserk. Of course, this only hinted at the facts. Not only was the left well aware of election fraud, but because it was largely in their favor, they wanted to pretend it didn't exist. But seemingly every week, we stumble across more evidence of obvious voter fraud, and with every new report, Trump smiles just a little more. Voter fraud is very real, and perhaps it's no surprise to see the overwhelming reports coming from Democrat-centric cities and towns. For instance, there's the liberal haven known as Chicago, where Mayor Rahm Emanuel has already proven he cares far more about illegal immigrants than American citizens. But now we've got hard evidence of massive voter fraud in that city and surrounding areas. From Federalist Papers. The Chicago City Wire reports that, more than 14,000 votes were cast in Chicago during the 2016 general election than there were voters to cast them. Based on separate figures released by the Chicago Board of Elections, the chairman of the Chicago Republican Party has reported. Chris Cleveland told the Chicago Wire that on a whim, he filed a Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) request with the board, which provided him with a list of 1,101,178 people who voted in the general election. An earlier post on the board's website said that 1,115,664 votes had been cast. There should never be more votes than voters, Cleveland said. Every ballot cast should be recorded against a registered voter. That's a brilliant insight, isn't it? How do you get more votes cast than registered voters? Simple. Voter fraud. To make matters worse, Chicago isn't the only jurisdiction with this problem. In fact, this is not the only variety of voter fraud, either. According to the director of Judicial Watch's Election Integrity Project Robert Popper, there are 10 other states that have another kind of discrepancy in their voting rolls. The number of registered voters exceeds the number of voting-age citizens as determined by a review of census data. Just don't tell the powers that be in Chicago that someone else has invented another way to rig the vote. Heads will roll over the failure of the city's leaders to keep up with and implement the latest innovations in voter fraud. No matter what, this qualifies as a ridiculously huge problem and one that absolutely needs to be fixed. Trump was right, and hopefully, the #1 issue that plagues democracy will be eliminated during Trump's time.